So in the beginning, we'll just go back and talk to the history. Yeah, is it there? Somebody's recording. Okay, I think you're good.
All right.
Okay, good morning, Walt.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing great, sir. Doing great. What about you?
I'm doing fine. It's a Monday and had a nice restful weekend.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me, Walt, today.
Looking forward to speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. At the beginning, always, I like to go many moons back to November 2019 and maybe earlier to that, a few months earlier to that. I would like to hear from you about the history of the formation of the Lone Star section. How did the idea come? How it happens? How fast it was? Did you have any difficulties? Do you mind just brief our members how it goes?
Sure. So it was, as you say, back in those days, some of the leaders from the San Antonio general area of the Central Texas section uh, talked about how we could increase activity within our particular area of what was the section at that time. Unfortunately, San Antonio and Austin are just far enough apart that it's not very easy for members in either of the two main communities to go to the other community to participate in events. And so we thought that perhaps what we ought to go ahead and do is form a new section concentrated around the San Antonio area to where we could focus on the members, IEEE members that lived in our vicinity, and get activities going that more people here could participate in. And we thought it would be a good opportunity to maybe grow some of the future leadership in this area, give people leadership opportunities, because it's very valuable for people that want to be leaders in industry or academia to get experience doing that through a professional society where you're working with volunteers. It's great practice, and it's really a great opportunity for professional growth. So we decided that we wanted to do it, and so we entered a petition within the MGA organization to form the new section. And that went forward to the meeting that was held in Boston back in 2019, and allowed us to essentially form the new section.
That was in Boston or Austin?
Boston. The meeting where the was
Oh.
approved was in Boston, Massachusetts. That's just, those meetings rotate around from place to place in the United States, and that meeting happened to be in Boston that year.
Yeah, when I talked to Garrett and the rest of the founders of the section, most of them agreed that the distance, those 80 miles, were the main issue, why people were tired of traveling to Austin, which is true. I remember during Spring Branch, I did not get to know, maybe that's what you and me talk, we did not get to know each other even. All I know is John Burvis and Austin people. But always I'm thinking of something else, Walt. This is what I would like to hear from you. That we are big enough in San Antonio, the industry and the academia sectors are really big enough, and we deserve to have our own section. Don't you think so? Regardless of the distance?
Well, it's basically partially size. We are now, the Lone Star section's considered to be sort of a medium-sized section. We have around 800 members. The membership will vary depending on the time of year that you look at it because of the way the IEEE membership cycle works. But that's considered to be a medium-sized section, whereas Central Texas section's a large section with over 3,000 members. So I think it's not just a matter of the size. It is the fact that you got a group that maybe it's hard for them to participate in the central part of the activity, where so many more are located in the Austin area than they are in the San Antonio general area. So I think that had a lot to do with it.
Okay. Now, Walt, everybody told me the Lone Star section name was Walt's idea. So, yeah. How did you come up with the idea? I mean, it was, just to think, we are the Lone Star. Maybe,
right.
Yeah.
Well, we wanted something, I think, that wasn't just San Antonio specific, because we are not just San Antonio. We are all the counties ranging from basically the Cuero all the way to Del Rio. So it's a very large geographical county, even though we're smaller in terms of the numbers of members. And we were concerned if we picked a name that was too much just San Antonio, like calling it the San Antonio section or calling it the Alamo section, which in both cases implies San Antonio, it would exclude some of the rapidly growing areas around San Antonio, out of Comal County and Gonzales County and on around to Kendall County. So, you know, when you look at some of the growth in this area, when you look at Bernie and Bulverde and New Braunfels, all of those are growing very rapidly. And so we wanted to make sure we incorporated those particular areas into the name, and we thought that would be a good way to do it. And Lone Star, you know, we also wanted something that was not just totally isolated. It would talk about Texas. It would talk about our community, and we thought Lone Star was very good to represent not just San Antonio, but the surrounding areas as well. And as you noted in some of the other interviews that you had, there was some resistance to that, where it kind of implied that we were grabbing the whole state. That wasn't our intention. We wanted something that was memorable and inclusive, and I think we accomplished that. It's exciting, and it's made for some great logos, as you might see. Have you know, as you look for our logos, kind of good to be able to capitalize on that Lone Star theme. It's very good for branding purposes.
Yeah, I mean, everybody noticed that. It's another Texas thing. I like what you did. Thank you for choosing that. At the beginning, maybe still you are one of the founder, but you were not the leader at that time. But I'm sure you witnessed some of the challenge priorities, the initial programs at that time. So could you talk about that area precisely? What was the thought? How did you start planning things and setting things up? Yeah, in brief.
Yeah. Well, maybe just a little background first. You know, my entry into IEEE was through the technical activities side. When I became a member back in the 1980s, it was because I wanted to get heavily involved with a conference that was being held in San Antonio periodically and was very relevant to the career field that I'd chosen. I was working in the area in those 80s, early 80s timeframes. We were just beginning to apply microprocessors to various activities. And one was doing automated testing of electronics, specifically military electronics and avionics. As it turned out, Kelly Air Force Base managed the U.S. Air Force's automated test equipment. And having an IEEE conference in San Antonio was very popular among government and industry because it allowed us to hold this conference here where the community could gather with the users, like the Air Force and the industry. So, and of course, San Antonio is a great place to have a conference, as you know, with the Riverwalk and everything. So it's just a perfect thing. So what happened was I became the technical program chairman for this conference, which is called AutoTestCon. It still exists today. And we held that conference here in San Antonio in 86 and 90 and 93 and 99. And I was the technical program chairman for those first three conferences, and then the general chairman of the conference in 1999. And I enjoyed it so much, and it was so beneficial to my career that I got involved. The particular conference itself is hosted, sponsored by two of the IEEE societies. One of the societies is the Instrumentation and Measurement Society, and the other is the Aerospace Electronic Systems Society. And those two societies provide representatives to a board which governs the conference. And so I was interested, so I became a member of the Aerospace Electronic Systems Society, got onto the board for the society, became the society representative to AutoTestCon, which I've served on off and on all the way to the present. I'm still on the board for AutoTestCon and was just elected chairman of the board for AutoTestCon. And so
congratulations.
I was not so familiar. I was not as involved with local activities, with the IEEE being organized into technical activities and geographic activities. My focus all the way up till the mid 2010s, was on the technical activity side. I wasn't that involved in the geographic activity side. But this idea of having the section here in San Antonio, the area with the Lone Star section, really appealed to me. And so that's when I began to get involved. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to build on that success of having conferences in our area, because it's a great way to get people involved. It's a great way to provide funding for activities locally, and it's just very beneficial all the way around. So, there's lots of routes to get involved in IEEE. I chose the conference route, but, we find that many of our academic members, they get involved through the publications, and some of our industry members get involved through the standards activities, and then others that are particularly involved in STEM or interested in STEM get involved through the educational activities. So the point is, there's a lot of different ways to get involved, but this local hub of activity is what brings it all together.
Well, I'm glad you did. That being said, Walt, there is something really I have to tell you. I have to tell our members, everybody, about you. I admire the way you contribute to the IEEE. I know you now for almost 2 years, maybe around this time. And between the system, IEEE System Council, and the Lone Star, and all these activities you just told me, and I know you are a busy man. You are doing a big job and busy job. But still, the IEEE is very important for you. And you contribute a lot of your time to be part of the IEEE. Why you are doing this, Walt? What's the reason?
Well, it's enjoyable for many reasons. One is that, to me, if you can find a way to make your career and things that you like to do with your own personal time well aligned, to be almost one and the same, then you've heard the saying, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life, because you're doing what you enjoy doing. So the thing about, the professional society is it's typically pretty closely aligned to what you are doing in the way of job activities, right? And so, again, I found particularly going through the conferences that it was directly relevant to what I was doing, because I was involved in working projects with these clients or collaborating with the other companies in industry. And so it was just it really blurred the line of when are you working and when are you doing something as the way of the professional activity. And I think it's true too, when again, if you look at the academia side, when you're doing research, you are doing it in order to be able to make discoveries. And the whole point is then you publish that information in the journals where those discoveries can be learned by the entire community, and we can advance technology. So again, you look at that and say, so okay, on that side, when am I working and when am I doing what I enjoy doing? Because it's they're related to so integrally to what I do. And so I mean that's to me that's the key to it, is that it's very much the blurred line as to when I'm working and when I'm doing the professional activity, because they're so synergistic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope everybody will hear you and they realize the value of being part of the IEEE. Now, let's go back to the Lone Star sections and talk about the early stage of forming the section itself. What was your role? How things went at the beginning? I think Garrett was that time. Neil was that.
Nils was the first chair,
yeah.
And Ernest Franke was the first secretary, and
he's still the secretary.
Well, we've got someone that's going to hopefully step into that position with the election this fall, and then Scott Atkinson was the treasurer, and we now have a new treasurer, Werner Osorio, and I was the vice chair for the section when it was formed, and so we served that way for 4 years. And then we had elections this last fall, and we agreed that Nils would become the past chair and I would step into the chair position. So this is my first year chair of the section. The bylaws or the operating procedures for our section are that officers serve a 2-year term, renewable once. And so there's not going to be an election for chair or vice chair or treasurer this fall. But there will be a special election for secretary, because we have John Stone, who's volunteered to serve as a candidate. The AdCom for the group has approved that appointment, and if we get that ratified by the membership, then we'll be in good shape to have a new secretary going forward. Mm-hmm. Ernest has done a great job. I hope he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, yeah, I did not get to meet John. Maybe I need to talk to him also. So you've been the whole 5 years involved really with the section as vice chair, and now I know you are the chair. How did the section get involved with the academia and industry and with everything in the city? How did we start forming
Sure.
those? Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting thing, because one of the things that's very positive about the Lone Star section is that we now have 5 student branches. That's a lot for one section. It's more student branches than they have in the Central Texas section, I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that with 5 sections, we have more sections. We don't have as many students, of course, as the Lone Star section, but with the UTSA, St. Mary's, Texas A&M, San Antonio, University of Incarnate Word, and St. Mary's. So anyway, that's 5 of them. We didn't have Texas A&M when we started because they were just getting started as a university. But this last year, we were able to form a section at the Texas A&M San Antonio. So the point is, we just have a lot of synergy, if you will, already with the student branches within the area. So it was sort of a natural thing to build upon that, because one of the things we thought was important was being able to build for the future, because the organizers of the section were mostly life members or pretty senior members like me. And we aren't going to be able to carry the section forever. We need to bring in, again, part of the point of forming the new section was to groom leadership, give people leadership opportunities. And so now we're actively searching for those younger professionals that can start working in various chair positions or committee positions, and come to learn that working on these things is not a chore. It's it's one of these anomalies where the more you invest, the more you get out of it. I always say that if people ask you, what do you get out of being a member of IEEE, or what do I get from my membership? I say, well, if you just join and don't do anything else, you aren't going to get anything out of it. You'll get the copy of the Spectrum magazine. But, it's, if you want to get something out of your membership, you got to put something into it. And the irony is that the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And so that's always the chore of convincing new future leaders or potential volunteers that if you get involved, you're going to find, generally speaking, that you enjoy it. If you find your niche, there's a lot of different ways to get involved. Just get involved with something that you enjoy doing, and it'll be great. So, but that's the essence of why we started focusing on getting engaged with our student branches, because they're the future of the section.
Yeah, I think reading some of your posts the last few months, and you are personally involved with UTSA, student branches and others. Could you talk about that? What's your involvement with the student branches and why you are doing this?
Well, the main thing is just to reach out to them and make sure they know we're here and we're here to help them. So the membership, of course, the student branches is changing quickly. Every 2 years at the most, you have new people involved, because typically the students don't tend to get engaged with IEEE until probably their sophomore years at the earliest. There might be a rare occasion where you get a freshman involved, but most of the students are probably in their junior or senior year before they actually get engaged well with IEEE. So you got them for a very short period of time. So part of the key is the continuity is in the faculty advisors. And I didn't think we'd been doing a good job in directly engaging with the student branch faculty advisors. And so I made it a point to start meeting with them and reaching out to them and involving them in the local section activities. And I think we made some great strides at that. We kind of started with the spring planning meeting in February of this year, where I made a particular point of making sure that all the calendars were aligned, that we weren't doing it on the day of any before the semester started for any of the student branches, or that it fell on any work days or exam days. And the other thing we decided to do, this was actually even before my time, is we're going to hold our planning meetings at the local universities, and we're going to rotate it around. So we've held one at UTSA, we've held one at Texas A&M San Antonio, we've held one at St. Mary's, and this next one, just this coming Saturday, is going to be at Trinity University. And so it's, of course, easier for the students to come when the activity's on campus. And so, and by rotating around, it kind of serves the additional benefit of letting the students within the community interact with each other. So looking forward to continuing to do that to build collaboration and connectivity.
I'm glad that we are doing this. Whom else beside you is doing this? I know Scott, I think, told me, and Ernest, I think, told me he's involved with some of the student branches.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's I'm not the only one. I was actually speaking in terms of the section that's engaged with the students. And the other thing we have, just like in many cases, when a graduate attends a university from the local community, they're likely to stay in the community. So we have a large number, like the UTSA and St. Mary's and Trinity and the other students that once they graduated, they stayed in the community. But now by getting engaged with them before they've graduated, they remain as part of the section. So that's a real good opportunity for us to continue to build and make that continuity.
Okay. Now, Walt, looking ahead for the future, I think your terms, you're still having another year as a chair of the section.
That's right.
So the rest of your term and whomever come after you, do you have a vision of the plan in the coming 5 years, for example, 3-5 years, the size of the section, the involvement of the sections? I know we talked about the academia, but I'd like always to talk about the industry. Okay, what's the plans? Are we going to get involved with different industry, with different huge, we have huge companies in San Antonio.
Right. Well, as I've mentioned, because of my experience, industry's interested in conferences because that's where you get to perhaps either exhibit or you get a chance to interact with clients and other collaborators. And playing on that natural advantage that we have, that San Antonio is a good place to have conferences. We have a large, we are trying to attract either technical sponsorship or even financial sponsorship for a large number of conferences in the future. We found, that it was very beneficial for us to have a couple of the AESS, the Aerospace Electronic Systems Society conferences in San Antonio in those early days of our formation. We held the Digital Avionics Systems Conference here, and then later we held the Radar Conference, which is the main flagship conference of the Aerospace Electronic Systems Society. And in the case of that latter one, we were actually allowed to be financial co-sponsors of that conference. And as a result, we ended up with a significant surplus from that conference that we're now able to fund activities within our local community. And so we're trying to build on that model of bringing more conferences to San Antonio. We're going to have next year, we're going to have a security conference here, and that's a very natural type of conference to have in San Antonio with a lot of interest in cybersecurity and other aspects of national security here in San Antonio. And then we're going to have other conferences in the future. Coming up in 2026, we're going to have the MILCON, which is the flagship conference of the Communications Society. So it's military communications, very large conference.
I was going to ask you about the military because we have huge bases in San Antonio. And I'm sure, I remember when Gerrit and me talked, we talked about that, how we are trying to get involved with the military. It's a huge research going on in San Antonio. I was going to tell you also ask about the medical sector, actually. Are we involved with the medical sector somehow?
Yes, in the medical, the engineering and medicine and biology chapter of that particular society, we have several people that are very active in that. And one of the things they're going to do is they're hosting a workshop here in early December. I believe it's December 6th, 5th or 6th in San Marcos. So it's going to actually be an opportunity to collaborate between the Lone Star section and the Central Texas section. And the theme of that conference is looking at AI applications in medicine and biology. So yeah, that's definitely another sector which we can benefit from the growth and the industry base and the government base within the community.
Do we have a strategy? Did we set up a strategy, or are we still trying to figure out how we're going to do that? I'm glad, first of all, to hear that about the financial surplus we have, because once you start talking about the conferences, I know they are a good source of fund. I was going to ask about that. So Do we have a strategy for the future now? We have the funds. Do we have plans?
Well, what we did, we're active within Region 5, the region of the mid part of the country, and we've talked about this strategy within the region, working as a region to bring more conferences into the region, and so that is where this the strategy. And part of the strategy is getting insight far enough in advance as to where the technical activities are planning to hold their conferences so that you can get engaged early on and you're not just coming in at the last minute saying, oh, we're the local section, how can we help you? Typically by that time it's too late. You get these notices from IEEE that there's a conference coming to your section, but it's often less than a year away when you get that notice. And then when you go to the conference organizing committee and say, hey, we'd like to get engaged with your conference, it's like, well, where were you the last few years when we needed help, in terms of putting the conference together? Now what we can really provide is maybe some local activity support. So part of the strategy is getting insight far enough in advance to be able to do something. And, truthfully, what it also means is getting people that are active in technical activities engaged with local activities. I mean, part of the reason anyway, that we were able to get the 2 AESS conferences here is that I'm the past president of that society. And I knew where these conferences were looking for opportunities and could get engaged early on. So if we perhaps say looked at the region and saying, what other officers or past officers of some of the technical societies do we have in this region? And how can we engage them to bring more of these flagship conferences to areas? Because, there's other very great places to have conferences, Austin, Houston, Colorado. There's a lot, many in
the choices
Colorado.
are up. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to, that model we're trying to kind of duplicate in other areas where we can, because we're really, we're not there just with our hands out saying, oh, you're having a conference in our area, we'd like to get some of the surplus. We want to be engaged in saying that, let's take the radar conference was a good example. We were not only providing local support, we organized a student drone competition, 2 levels, one for high school STEM students and one for college students, which, naturally our local STEM high schools and local universities were the ones that were able to really take advantage of that. Although we did have schools from outside the area come, we provided a lot of support to the technical programs and that sort of thing. So we're providing our share of the work that goes in the conference itself. It's not just we're not just a landlord, so to speak.
Do you see any challenge, in the future? Do you see any difficulties of us expanding and always focusing in the number of members?
Sure. Well,
Walt, when you talk about almost 1.5 million, maybe we are close to 2 million in San Antonio. I don't know what was the population last month. So, and then we're still talking about mid-size, 800. I think there is a chance that we can get more people involved.
Sure. It's selling the proposition of the value of the professional societies, that you hear that, again, the younger generation students coming out is, why is it important to belong to a professional society? I speak about that a lot when I go to universities about what is the value of being in professional society, whether it's IEEE or whatnot. I tell them these are the reasons. One is that, again, if you're like me, you will find no matter what technical field you go into, there's going to be at least one or a small number of conferences that everybody that's anybody in that field of activity attends. And you want to be involved with that conference. If you're serious about this particular career field, you want to be involved with that conference. You want to present papers, you want to organize sessions, you want to get involved with running that conference, because you become known as a player in that community. It is essentially a credential that you've established to cite yourself as a sincere professional within that community. And then I go on from that. Say, if you get into an organization where standards like an 802.11 or some of the other standards are important, you need to be a player in that standards community, because for the same reason that it provides so much to your career. And if you go into academia, who publishes the peer review journals, the prominent peer review journals that are going to be vital to your advancement in obtaining tenure and those sorts of things through peer review publications. It's the professional society. So, publications is a huge part of the IEEE business, and you want to present papers, and you want to become part of the editorial activity board and those sorts of things. So it's just selling that notion of its value. There's value there, but you've got to get engaged to derive that value.
That's true. I always give this example, Walt, about those two co-workers back 14 years when I asked them, they were just late 20s. I asked them, they were net members, and they told me very, very, very frank that IEEE is for old people, old foxes. So they have that impression that IEEE is for the older people. I think always the way we should get involved with the local students chapters, we should look at their needs, what they want. I'll give you an example. Most of graduate or senior student, they are looking for FE exam. The fundamental, which is the prior to the PE. So for example, why we don't organize some training, some work with different organizations to help them to pass the FE exam. So we have to see what they need. Okay, we have to talk their language. I like the way you told me that you visit, but also I watch always Tom, our president. You see how he's always traveling for this young professional student, and he tried to get involved with their conferences. And even you did. You always go there to conferences and post pictures and encourage them. But the main topic, I think, we should look for their needs, what they need, what value they should find with us as a section. What do you think of that?
Sure, that's certainly a good part of it as well. I mean, providing something that is beneficial, and again, but a part of it is convincing them that some of these things they need. If they want to be a leader, the best place to start is to be the leader in a volunteer organization where you have no authority over the people that you're trying to lead. You have to lead through skills that you developed in persuasion and interaction. And again, how do you convince someone of that? Hey, you know what? I need that. I need that skill.
That's true. I'll give you another example, Walt. Why we didn't work? We are involved with the industry. Why we don't work with some industry like Southwest Research Institute, for example, try to get some training, summer training or whatever for students, members, and tell them, hey, we can help you to get training or get connected with finding a job or training. There is many things we can convince them. I don't know how we're going to do that, but there should be a way to start setting this up if we are really looking ahead. I love the way you told me they are the future. We have really to focus on them.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we have found that the students are very interested in, maybe it's just because of Southwest Research Institute, but they love to come out here and have tours and hear people talk.
I saw you posting that. I love that. Yes.
We do that a lot, so that's one thing that we found that the students do want to be able to do, particularly in the areas like robotics and space and cybersecurity and automation and intelligent transportation, all those hot areas. And so that's a good way, to, of course, the companies are often very interested in that because these are potential recruits. So it's very easy to build that sort of into your recruiting budget to have tours and host the visitors. And the faculty or the students are often looking for people to make technical presentations on campus. And so we try to provide that sort of support wherever we can. And we also try to make sure that we're aware of the students' calendar, the professional society's calendar, so we know when they're having things so that we can actually have people show up and participate and interact with the students. Because what you find if you go to one of these activities where there's students there, they naturally tend to reach out to you eventually, once they get over their shyness, and want to know answers to questions, and particularly career questions and professional development questions. So just being there to be able to interact with them and be a regular face at the activity is very helpful.
Do you think, before I get one more question, Walt, but do you think I should talk to the leaders of those student sections? I would like to have them. I would like to talk to them and see what's their vision, what they see, just face to face and talk to them.
You
What do you
could.
think?
I would suggest doing it like as a panel, to where
Uh-huh.
you try to
Yes.
give you some more than one, so that it's not just a one-on-one thing and you get a chance to interact. And it'd be fun also, even to talk to some of the student leaders from the local student branches,
It's
just to
not
have
only
them
that.
talk.
I remember I suggested this to Tom Thomas. I told him I want to get you involved in an interview. You remember when we talked about the history column interview, and get some of the student and young professionals from all over the world in a panel and get you there. So maybe we can get you, or some of our leaders, the founders, you get it, or Scott, and get a lot of members and let them talk to you. Let them ask questions, and we see how to get. Maybe I need to organize that. I love the idea. I love the idea. That worked perfectly. Is there anything you would like to cover, while that we did not talk about? Maybe the cool email you sent us about the new T-shirt and the logo.
Yeah. So when we first organized the section, we decided we would get golf shirts for the leadership and some of the key volunteers. And so they were nice light blue. You probably seen them, the golf shirts
I've
that
seen
have
the
an early version of our logo. It was a sort of just a Lone Star the image. It was before we made our current logo. And those shirts have been very popular. I purchased several of my own because I wanted to be able to wear them on more than one occasion. And so it's come time where we need to go through that again and reward some of our volunteers, to show them a token of appreciation for the work that they do. And this time we decided we would go with broadcloth, professional looking shirts. And so we've been in the process of finding the right type of shirt with the embroidery group that can put on the logo. And we think we found our sources. And so at the upcoming fall planning meeting, we're going to bring the samples of the shirts, and we're going to make sure we get all of our volunteer leaders shirt sizes, and then we're going to place an order. And then what we're hoping to be able to do is give everybody their a shirt as a token of appreciation when we have the volunteer appreciation dinner in December. And so then you actually have some tangible form of recognition that your efforts were appreciated. So,
Mhm.
yeah. And so, again, we're always looking for volunteers. We will find a position for someone in the area that interests them. And, it's one of these ironic things. You put out a general call, and then with the you're kind of an exception. We put out a call to where we needed a editor for our history section, and you responded. That's very rare, actually. When you put out a call for volunteers to just a general call, that someone actually responds. It usually you have to go one-on-one with people. I mean, you get the notice out there that so that people know you're looking for volunteers, but often what you have to do is you have to go to someone and say, hey, we got this position open and we think you're the right person for this position for these reasons. And it's got to be sincere. I mean, the person has particular skills or positions that make them the ideal candidate for the position. So in your case, like say, it's the exception that proves the rule, that we had somebody. I mean, I was blown away when I discovered you were actually in the Lone Star section and were a writer for Spectrum magazine. That was amazing to me. And it's just there's so much information out there that's it's difficult to find it all out. You know, and sometimes you have this serendipity that makes it all work out.
Thank you. I'm happy with the data point article more than any other article I wrote. It was really nice, and it took me a time to convince Kathy to approve it, but finally, it's life. I'm glad we did that. I have finally a question, Walt. Unless you have another point, what's the plan for the milestone about the data points?
What I didn't
The
catch that.
plan when we are applying for the milestone award for the data point,
Oh,
where we
oh,
are.
I don't have an update on that. We'll have to do that on another occasion, I guess.
Yeah,
I
I
know
know. I
we'd work
do.
it through. We'd work it through the Region 5 History Committee and up in that
Mhm.
direction.
Okay. Yeah, because I mentioned that. I remember that I mentioned that in the article. And when I talked to Ernest, still he told me he's working that because it seems it's been done online. Um, Any other thoughts, Walt, you'd like to add? Sorry to call for the volunteers.
No, like I say, I just want to again express my appreciation for your volunteering to be our
Thank you.
history committee chair and to conduct these this oral history of the section. I think hopefully someday people look back on and say, "Oh, that's how it got started." It'd be interesting. And what we find ironically is that often people don't get interested in history until almost too late. That the people that you would have liked to have talked to are no longer there to be able to interview. So I'm glad we're undertaking this effort now, and I really appreciate your leadership of it.
You are welcome. You are always. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And thank you. It was your idea also, if you remember that. I keep thinking of other questions. We talked about the 5-year anniversary. Any special ceremony, any special thing we're going to do? I remember you emailed me once, you said I need to come up with something. Can we surprise our members?
Well, I think what we'll do is we'll probably do that. That's a good point. I have to think about it. It will be a surprise.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, because we're almost mid-September. Well, we're going to be in October soon. Yeah. Okay. I hope you announced that. But Walt, it's always a pleasure talking to you and working with you. It's an honor working with you.
I'm glad you reminded me of this because the actual anniversary would be in November.
This is the second time I remind you. Remember that?
Yeah, I know, but there's been other things going on. So yeah, I'll have to consider maybe something special and maybe a cake. We'll have a cake in November to celebrate 5 years.
At least a cake with 5 years, and I can join virtually if I'm not there. Walt, it's fun to see somebody from San Antonio getting involved with IEEE all over System Council and all this activity, like what Scott is doing also. I keep telling my friends, it's about time. We need to pull the red carpet from California a little bit to the south. The IEEE. Don't you think so? We need some leadership position in the IEEE from the south, at least from Texas. I have one day. Do you have any plans in the future to be nominated, or you don't?
I don't have any plans.
Question.
But I'm sure we'll have some opportunities in the future.
Yeah, because looking now, California is taking the whole thing. With my respect to everybody, but we'd like to have some leadership from the south here. That's will bring a lot of attention to our section and to the people of San Antonio.
Well, one of the areas where we've had a pretty good leadership out of our section is in IEEE USA, and as a matter of fact, tonight is the candidates forum for IEEE USA president, where Bob Becknell from Region 5 and Barry are going to have a debate. And it's not really a debate; it's just a candidate forum for IEEE USA members to get a chance to hear both candidates. So I know both of them. I know Bob through the region and Barry through the Aerospace Electronic Systems Society because he's currently on the board. So that'll be a tough thing for me to vote on. I have to pick between the two because I've got no loyalties to both. But I think maybe the positive thing is that whoever wins is I'm going to feel happy for them because I know them and would like to see them advance into leadership positions.
That's why sometimes we have to think, and it's secret. Nobody knows what you voted. I hope one day you will consider yourself. I would like you one day to announce your nomination. Hopefully one day we can get you in one of these positions, Walt.
It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. I wish you a good morning and a productive week. Thank you so much.
Okay. Until we meet again.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.